What's up, everybody? Boom! We are back at Mount Mograph, and I got a pretty fun video for us today. I caught Pokemon this morning, believe it or not. I didn't watch like the whole show, but I turned on my TV, and lo and behold, I saw the vintage Pokemon. That was a big part of my childhood on TV. So I was kind of inspired, and so I made a Pokeball. And this is what it turned out to be, which actually looked pretty cool. So I'm going to take you step by step to making a Pokeball. We'll go through everything once again. And even I'll show you how to create a very nice little light studio that's great for like products. So we'll pretend that Professor Oak himself has given us a little call. And actually I still have this up. So I'll just do a quick preview and show you guys what we will be making. And anyway, I'll keep talking, I guess. So we'll pretend Professor Oak is contacting us because he's got a sweet new Pokeball model out, and he wants us to basically make a little commercial advertisement for him. So we'll be making a little 3D model of his new Pokeball and adding some very nice glossy textures to it, as well as all the lights in the scene, and giving it a very realistic, stylized glow to everything. So I think this will come out really nice, and if you guys, I mean, this is actually a really cool lesson on lighting. If you want, I'll show you everything, and we'll even, I'll show you about bounce mats and how to add like a little bit more realistic textures to your reflections. So any second now it will be rendered, and this is pretty close to what we will be making today. So as you can see, we have some really nice, we have very nice reflections. We have a couple like bounce mats floating around, and overall this is a very light scene, and I don't know, it makes me want to buy a Pokeball. It makes me want to go out and start catching some Pokemon. So with that all set up, we will just I don't even need to save this. I don't want to save that. So let's go into Cinema 4D and get this started. I'll be using a Studio R15, but this should work in just about any version. So let's start by just creating a primitive here. And we're going to just do a sphere, obviously. And what we're going to do with this sphere is just turn this up a little bit. So let's see. Whoa, I meant to say turn up the segments, not turn them down. Actually, we'll leave it as is for a second. And what we're going to do is first create a cylinder here also, and rotate this 90 degrees. And we're just going to scale down our cylinder. We're going to be creating our outer shell first here. So I'm going to pretend that's going to be where our button is here. And now what I'm going to do is go and grab an array object, grab a bool, and drop our cylinder in first, and then our sphere. And this should cut out a hole in our cylinder, or in our sphere, which looks nice. Well, I don't know if this looks nice, but this is a start of something that will look nice. How about that? And so let's also go and grab another cylinder. We're going to go grab primitives, cylinder, and we're going to turn our radius way up and our height down. So this is going to be the black band that goes around our Pokemon ball. I looked at some little cartoon drawings online to see what a Pokeball looks like, because I've never, I mean, I don't know if it's like a scientific certain way to do it, but this is just what I came up with that seemed to look all right. So this looks pretty good. Let's go grab another array object and make it a bool. And what we're going to do is drop our cylinder in first, and then our other bool object in second. So we are now going to have a Death Star that got sliced in the middle, and it's coming along just fine, and we're going to just jump right into the rest of this. So let's name this Outer Shell, and what we're going to do now is, Shield, Outer Shell, that's 2 L's I believe. What we're going to do now is go into our sphere here. Actually, yeah, we'll just let it be for a second. So now let's go and grab another, what do we want to grab here? Let's grab another sphere. So we'll just grab this sphere and drag it out just like this, and scale it down a bit. And that is going to be our black band. I might even scale this a little bit more. So we're going to have, it's going to be a little bit smaller than the other one. And that looks fine. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, with that sphere selected, this is going to be our inner shell. Inner shell, no 2 E's this time. And let's turn our segments way up. So I'm going to turn this to 194 will be the magic number. And press C on your keyboard to make your inner shell editable. And let's go into our one of our side views. So you can go F3 or F4. And what we're going to do is select our inner shell layer and go and select our polygon mode. Press V on your keyboard for your quick selection menu. Go into select and grab a rectangle selection. And make sure to come over into your attribute manager and click only select visible elements and unclick that. And so now what we're going to do is just along whatever axis you're looking at, this horizontal one, it's either going to be your Z or your X. We're just going to go and drag across this little section. And now press T on your keyboard for your scale, hold Command, and just drag this in a bit. And this is just going to be an extra band for us. So there we go. We're starting to get something that might look like a Pokemon ball. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now what I think we're going to want to do is go into our sphere inside of our outer shell and just turn these segments up as well and just make it look a little bit smoother. I'm going to turn mine up to 200. And so now we have something that's coming together pretty nicely. Now that we've set our segments properly, let's press C on our keyboard to make our inner sphere editable. And it's going to turn blue because we're still in polygon mode. Let's go into our side view. So F3 or F4 on your keyboard. And what we're going to do is set two selection tabs here, just so we can add colors to it very easily. So let's grab our rectangle selection tool, make sure only select visible elements is turned off, and basically just click about halfway through it and just select stuff. And we're going to go into select and go to set selection. Just click that. We'll get a little triangle tab that pops up. And let's call this one red color. Great. So let's unclick that and click our sphere one more time. And now we're going to grab this again with our rectangle selection tool. Just drag this over. It can overlap a little bit. Go into your select menu and go set selection. And we're going to call this one white color. Okay. So let's just not worry about that anymore. We're going to go back into our live selection tool, click our object mode, and go into our perspective view. So we have those set up. We'll be adding color in just a second. Let's create the little button here to open our Pokemon ball. So we're going to go into our primitives and select a cylinder, set it so it's on the +Z orientation. And what we're going to do is just scale this down a bit and maybe move it forward as well. And basically we're just going to sit it inside of our little cutout that we made. So let's turn our segments up. I'm going to turn mine up to 103 is the magic number, and press C on your keyboard to make your cylinder editable, and I'm going to rename this button. So now with our button selected, go and press V on your keyboard for your quick selection menu. Go into select and go to live selection and press V one more time and go into tools and modes and go to polygons. So now let's just circle over our front of our cylinder here. And what we're going to do is hold T or press T to bring up your scale properties, hold Command and just drag in a bit about there, and also do this one more time. So no, actually don't do that. So we're gonna just move over to our side, press E on your keyboard to bring up your move tools, and just drag backwards quite a bit. So about there. So now we have a little, I don't know, the button's sitting back in there. So press T to bring up your scale tools, hold Command and drag in a bit. So we're getting a second cut. This is just the extrude tool shortcut. Press E to bring up your move tool and just hold Command and drag this button out. So that looks pretty good right about there. Press T to bring up your scale tools, and we're going to scale this one in. So that's going to be another extrude. Press E to bring up your move tool, and what we're going to do is hold Command and drag this button out. And there we go. In no time at all, we have a little Pokemon button to unlock all our Pokemon secrets. Also, can you guys think of the 152nd Pokemon from the 151 original Pokemon? I actually just found this out yesterday talking with one of my friends, and it is actually Togepi. So in the original 151 Pokemon, there's 152. Go figure. That doesn't make sense. Anyway, let's go and select our button layer and go into your edges mode. Press V on your keyboard to bring up your quick selection menu, and let's grab the ring selection mode. Or loop selection mode, sorry, and just click that. And what we're going to do is just zoom in and select this circle band at the front of our button. So since we're working for Professor Oak, we're going to want to make a very nice high quality model for him. So just with that selected, right click and go and select your bevel tool. And let's turn our subdivisions up to 3 and our offset distance to 0.5 I think will look good. And so there we go. We now have a nice smooth round edge for this Pokemon model. So now his button is glossy and fantastic, or will be glossy and fantastic, and we are all set up to color our Pokemon ball. So let's just, first we'll color our button. So just double click in your material manager, and we are going to create this and call this button. And let's go into our color, and we're going to grab a texture. We're going to set this to a very white color, obviously. And we'll go into our texture mode and grab a Fresnel. And we'll grab our Fresnel and set this black side over here to a just lighter gray, just to give it a little bit of contrast. Go back into your color mode. We'll set our mix mode to add, and we're going to have an, actually add is not going to work as well as I'd hoped. We'll just turn our add down to maybe 5%, looks pretty good. Let's go into our reflection and click that. And let's just turn our reflection down maybe to 23, looks pretty good. And we'll also turn our texture to a Fresnel. And we'll turn this on to a multiply mix mode. And just turn our mix strength down a little bit. So let's go into our specular, and we'll just maybe turn our width down a little bit and our height down a little bit. So I set 44 and 12. So let's grab our button color and just put this onto our button. Wow, our button is now colored and it looks fantastic. Now let's do our inner sphere here. So I'm going to duplicate my button layer and just double click into that, and I'm going to call this inner sphere. And what I'm going to do is go into my color mode, and I'm going to just click my color. I'll set it to a black, a dark gray or a black, and set my mix mode down here to multiply. So now we're going to have a little bit of contrast there. Go into your reflection and turn up your brightness, and set your mix mode to normal, and maybe set it to 6 or so. Let's go into our diffusion layer and click that. And what we're going to do is click Effect Luminance and Effect Reflection, and just turn your brightness down to maybe 18%, looks good. So let's grab our inner sphere and put it onto our inner shell here and see how that's looking. And this is going to look great once we get our lights in our studio all together. So now let's go and create our top shell, which is going to be a red. So I'll just duplicate my inner sphere, and I'm going to call this color red. Let's go into our color panel. Also turn off your diffusion layer. Go into your color mode. Let's set our color to a red, some kind of red here. That looks good. And I'm going to set my the mix mode to Fresnel, I'm going to set my texture to a Fresnel. My mix mode I'm going to set to add, and I'm going to turn my mix strength up to 5% here. Let's go into our reflection, and we're going to pick our color. Let's just pick something kind of a little bit red. So I did 255, 224, and 224 for our RGB settings. I'm going to turn my brightness to 25. Ooh, what did I just do? Turn my brightness to, let's go 24%. And Fresnel we'll put to multiply, and maybe turn our mix strength up to 100%. Let's go into our specular, and we're just going to maybe turn our width down a little bit. We'll turn our height, what should we do? Let's turn our height up, and we'll get a nice little spot. Let's turn our height to maybe 33 or so, and we'll turn our fall off to, I'm just playing around and looking up here. So this is how I always build colors. I don't have like set numbers. I just play around until I have something that looks all right. All right, so I'm happy with that, I think, and we can tweak this setting if it doesn't work out. Let's grab our red. We'll twirl down our outer shell here. So select your sphere, and we're going to drag our red color onto our sphere, and our whole sphere is going to turn red. So we'll click our material here, And what we're going to do is under the selection, we're just going to drag our selection. So this first one, if you hover over it, it'll tell you what it is. So I have my red color and my white color. Let's drag our red little triangle selection onto it, and it's only going to select that portion. So that's nice, and we'll be doing, we'll just duplicate our red layer, and we'll set our color to a white, and let that setting be the same, and maybe turn our reflection up a little bit, and our Fresnel we'll set to normal just to make it a little different, and our mix strength to 8%, and I'll call this white. And we'll grab our, oh, it didn't save the name, so I'm going to call this texture white, and let's drag our white texture onto our sphere, and we're going to hover over your little selection tags until you see your white color, and just drag this into your selection for your white. So there we go, we have a super awesome little Pokeball. So let's group all these together. So just drag them all or highlight them all with your selection marquee and do Alt-G on your keyboard to group them, and let's call this Pokeball. So great, we have our Pokeball. I'm going to scale this down a bit. There's a lot of polygons, so it might go a little slow for you guys, but it's okay. So with that selected, pop up your axis center, or you can just press L to bring up your axis modification. And I'm just going to set this axis point at the bottom of my polygon and do a PSR update, so it's now sitting on our floor. So with that, let's go and create our little studio. And this is where I think the best part of the video is going to happen. So yeah, I hope you guys are liking it so far. Throw me a like or subscribe or leave me a comment if you like this Pokeball thus far, even with no lights. So let's go into one of our side views. So F3 on our keyboard. There is our awesome Pokemon ball. So let's go into our spline tools and grab a Bezier handle. We'll press V on our key, or we'll press P on our keyboard to bring up our snapping selections, and let's set on enable snap. And let's make sure our Bezier spline is selected. And I'm just going to click over here and maybe move forward, click here and click here, drag out my handle a little bit, and then I'll just go up here and click one more time. So it doesn't even have to be perfect, and we have a spline that looks just fine. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. Spend more time on it if you like, but I think this should work out. So I'm just going to drag this over a bit and then hold command and drag it over again. And what we're going to use is a tool I haven't talked about in any of my other videos, and that is going to be the loft NURBS. And so I'm going to drag my two splines into my loft, and it is going to create this wonderful studio for us. It basically just fills in any colors, or not colors. It fills in a material between two splines. So I'm going to call this studio floor. And let's put our button texture, or I'll duplicate my button texture here. And I'm going to turn my reflection off, and I'll turn my specular. I'll just change the settings a little bit. So just click randomly. I'm going to set 17 and 17, and I'm going to call this floor, just to give it a different color. And so let's grab our floor texture onto our studio floor and see how this is looking. So there's no lights in the scene, and we're starting to get our scene coming together. So let's go and create a light, and let's go up into our lights and just drag click it for a normal light. And what we're going to do is tweak some settings. So first, let's go into our light type and set this to an area light. Go into our shadow and set this also to an area light. We're going to go into our details here and just turn your outer radius up a bit, just to make our light larger. And let's scroll down in our menu here and grab our fall off. We'll set this to an inverse square clamped, and this will just create a light fall off, so it looks like a realistic light here. And we'll turn this on to Z direction only, so the light is only coming out of one side. So anyway the blue arrow is facing, our light is going to be facing. So let's call this our key light. And what we're going to do is right click your key light here, go to Cinema 4D tags and set this to a target tag. And we're going to drag our Pokeball into our target tag as our target object here. So that means our light is always going to be facing our Pokeball no matter where I move it in the scene. So this is a very easy way to just move lights around and always be facing the object. Okay, so let's go back into our light settings here, and we are going to just check this bottom section. I'm going to turn my radius and decay up a little bit here, so to 596. Let's go into our visibility and turn our sample distance up to 50 just to smooth out some of the shadows once they're in there. We'll go into our shadow, turn our accuracy down to 1, minimum samples to, let's go 3, and our maximum samples to 350. So I talked about this in another video. For some reason, accuracy, you can either make your light quality better through your accuracy or through your maximum samples. And so maximum samples actually gives you the best quality of light over your accuracy. However, if your accuracy is high, the Cinema 4D is going to calculate your accuracy and not your maximum samples. Or, well, it'll calculate both, but this takes priority over your maximum samples. So basically always use maximum samples aside from accuracy to create a nice light. So let's see how this is looking with just one light in the scene. So as you can see, we're already starting to get some nicer looking light in our scene. And I think this is looking pretty nice, but I think there's definitely some room for improvement. So let's lift our Pokeball off the floor just a little bit, so just a touch. And what we're going to do is go into our primitives and select a plane. So let's move our plane over to the side here and turn it 90 degrees on its side and just scale this up quite a bit till you almost have another wall. Let's double click in our material manager, and I'm going to call this as a reflective surface or something. I don't know why I called it reflective surface. I should have called it like a bounce or something, but whatever. So we're going to turn off all of our settings here except for our luminance. We're going to turn our luminance on and just leave it to 100% should be fine. So with that all set up, let's go and just drag our reflective surface onto our plane here. And I'm just going to show you what this is doing. So now this is going to add some reflection to our object, or it should. You can kind of see it over here. We'll be tweaking some more stuff to get that to pop out a little bit more. But let's right click our plane. I'm going to call this, actually now I can name it properly. So I'm going to call this bounce card. Let's right click our bounce card, go to Cinema 4D tags and click compositing. So we don't want our bounce card to affect any of the light in the scene. We just want it to be a add reflections to our surfaces. So let's unclick the tag properties of cast shadows and receive shadows. And now it's just going to be like an extra texture in our scene almost. So press E to bring up your move tool and just press command and drag your bounce card over to the other side of this little studio we've created. And so now we still don't have our main lights in the scene, but we should be getting some nice little highlights on our Pokeball. And so I think Professor Oak is going to be happy. Are you guys sick of that joke yet? I hope so. So now what we're going to do is duplicate. So grab your key light and just press command and duplicate this. So we're going to have a very bright key light, and we're just going to move this, and since our target tag is on there, it's always going to be facing our little light here, our Pokeball. And I would like to go into my general settings on the second one, and I'm going to call this scene light. And in our scene light settings, let's turn off our shadow for our area, and so set this to none. Let's go into our color, and we're going to add a nice like a kind of a light sunny color to it, and I'm going to turn my intensity down to 91. So what this is going to do is just give our scene a little bit of a warmer tone and really tell the buyer, like, hey, this Pokeball is awesome. We have a nice, it'll look great outside. So we still are going to add a couple more lights to the scene until we get a super awesome glossy Pokeball. So what I'm going to want to do is brighten up this background because it was a little dark. So let's go into our lights and select a spotlight. And what we're going to do is just in your spotlight settings, we're just going to drag this back so it's almost, it starts right behind the Pokemon ball. Oh, also go and press P and unclick your enable snapping because mine was snapping and I don't want that. So let's go into our details and we're going to turn our outer angle just way up. So I'm going to turn mine up to 143. I'm going to go and select my fall off to an inverse square, physically accurate. No fall off. Just keep that normal. And I'll turn my sample distance also up to Ooh, 74 is too high. Let's set this to 45 and don't do anything else. So I'm just going to see how this is looking. All right, so this is starting to look kind of nice. We have like a nice, I'm gonna actually go into my spotlight here and name this spotlight. And I'm gonna go into my general settings and let's just turn our spotlight down a little bit. We just want a light, kind of like a ring of light here, but we don't want it to be affecting anything too much. So I think this is starting to look pretty nice. Let's go and now set some settings and use Global Illumination to really make this scene pop. So let's go into our render settings here. And first, you're gonna wanna add ambient occlusion. So I'll delete it and I'm gonna right click or just go to Effect and click Ambient Occlusion and just keep everything to the default. So let's right click one more time and go to Global Illumination. So this is where the magic happens, per se. Let's go into our primary method and set this to Irradiance Catch Legacy. And go back into your general settings. That's going to be our primary method, and this is going to capture the scene. It's a little slow, but it looks really good. And as our secondary method, there's actually a better version, which is the QMC Irradiance, or the QMC Global Illumination is a better version, but it's a lot slower. So I'm going to use the Irradiance Catch as our primary light calculation, and our secondary one I'll set to the better one of QMC. So let's set our samples up to high just to get nice smooth colors, and go into our Irradiance Catch and set your record density. We'll set this to high and keep the details, and interpolation mode to least squares. We're going to set our smoothing to very heavy, and this is just going to really smooth out all the colors in our scene. And I'm going to click Details Enhancement. So let's close this and just zoom in and see what this has done to our scene. So I'll do Command R and it's going to do a little bit of a calculation, but as you can see, it's going to really calculate all the different light sources we have in our scene and really try to figure out what's going on and give us a nice little model. So this is starting to look pretty good, I think. I can see where we could make this a little bit better. And yeah, so this is starting to come together. So let's go into our key light, which is the main light for our scene, and just turn this down a little bit and see how that affects the scene, because it was just blowing out everything, and I want a little bit of color still to be in our scene. We don't want to just blow everything out nuts. And I mean, if this isn't looking good, you can tweak your settings a little bit more or go into your materials and actually mess around with those. So we'll just see how this is looking. So it's coming together. Let's just mess around a little bit more and see what we can come up with. So in our scene light, let's move this closer. So I'm just gonna drag my scene light, go into my top view here, and just move this a little bit closer and give it some warmer tones. And I'm gonna duplicate my scene light, just move it around. Luckily we have the target tag on, so it's always gonna be facing our object. So I'm just gonna put this maybe over here on the side. I'm gonna change my color to a light blue, and I'm gonna really turn this one down. So I'm gonna turn this to 23. Let's take our key light, which is our main light source, and just move this over onto the side, so almost where the walls are. And just put this there, and I'm gonna duplicate my key light and put one on the other side, and it'll be facing the right way. And now let's see how this is looking. It's just a lot of playing around, and it really depends on what your scene is. But I think for this one, with this product shot, we're going to want lights to be on the side and just a little bit of the scene light in the front. So I think this is already looking better. Yeah, I think this is starting to look pretty nice. It really depends on what your scene is. And I might even stop the video here. You know, like this is basically how you can set up a little studio. If you want, you can duplicate your Pokemon ball and just drag this out, maybe move this over and just set up a scene. And sometimes just adding extra objects to the scene will also help like move light around and disperse light. and add a little bit more reflections and make your scene look a little bit better. So it definitely takes a little bit of playing around. But if you guys found this video helpful or even kind of cool, please drop me a comment, leave me a like if you want to. It's pretty easy. Just click that little thumbs up. It makes me feel good and makes me know that I'm doing something that's helpful. So I hope you guys liked this video today. We went through lighting, texturing, and really quick and easy modeling for this Pokemon ball. And I hope this video brought back maybe some childhood memories and you had a little bit of fun. Let's just see how this render turned out and see if we made Professor Oak happy. And I'm thinking this should look pretty cool. So right off the bat, I'm just going to critique this kind of as we go. I would maybe turn our red color, just give that a little bit more of a reflective surface, and then would really get the more light in the scene. But we kind of have some nice reflection, but I would just turn up the settings on that a little bit. So let's just wait for this to finish. But I think that just adding more Pokemon balls to the scene really helped. Yeah, now you have like the reflection of the other Pokemon ball right here. And as you can see, the little bounce cards really start to add to your scene. They just give everything a nice sheen and nice tone. So this was Matt from Mount Mograph, and today we made Pokemon balls. Anyway, hope you guys liked this video, and I'll talk to you later. Get your learn on. Peace.